Have you tried scuba diving after dark? When the sun goes down, the underwater world experiences an incredible transformation, revealing marine life and behaviors you never see during the day. Night dives have impressed me so much they have steadily become my favorite kind of diving. In this video, I'll cover the experience of diving at night, how to prepare for it and how it differs from day diving and the special challenges it brings. Let's get started. When the sun sets, the ocean transforms into a completely different world. Deep sea creatures rise closer to the surface and numerous marine animals become more active at night, hunting, feeding, and showing off fascinating behaviors. And don't worry, you're not on the menu. One of the most magical sights is the bioluminescence from various animals like plankton. Imagine tiny creatures lighting up around you. It feels like swimming through a galaxy. I always like to think scuba diving is kind of like being an astronaut, more so with bioluminescent creatures nearby. Other glowing creatures use their light to communicate or hunt, adding to the magic. Night dives also change how you see the underwater world. Colors shift, objects seem larger, and the general experience feels dreamlike. It can deprive your body of sensory and leave you with tunnel vision down to the very beam that your dive torch can create. Plus, night dives often reveal small elusive creatures, perfect for macro photography, although spotting and taking photos of them takes a lot of skill and practice. Generally, night dives are done in more shallow dive areas where the ground can be reached. However, for the very adventurous, there is black water diving, which offers a new thrill surrounded by strange alien creatures in open water where the ground is not visible, often over a channel of some kind, leaving you floating in what seems and feels like that outer space I was talking to earlier. I do want to mention that generally, night dives require a good foundation of buoyancy control so you don't crash into things. And you should feel comfortable with your gear because you will generally have much lower visibility, and so you'll need to know how your gear behaves and be able to manipulate it in the dark. It's all about comfort, and these extra stressors can be intense if you haven't built your skills up sufficiently for the night dive experience. I'd recommend also you feel some degree of comfort being able to close your eyes and hold your depth while hovering and being able to do basic emergency drills. This will just arm you even better in event of an emergency. But how do you prepare differently for a night dive? Night dives require a bit more preparation than daytime dives. Here is what you need to know. Bring a buddy. While solo diving might work during the day, although not encouraged, it's a definite no-go at night. Always dive with a buddy or a group for safety. Know your gear. Be comfortable setting up your gear even in low light. Often there will be much less visibility when you're assembling your gear and tearing it down. So if you need help, make sure you have a buddy there to shine a torch for you while you assemble your gear. Carry 2 lights. Always bring a primary that you'll have equipped and ready to go, and a backup which you will generally have on your person in a pocket and that you've tested and charged the batteries for both your primary and backup and tested them before the dive. Know your lights. A wide beam is great for illuminating large areas and is most ideal with taking photos or video, while a narrow beam, which is this thing, works for seeing farther distances by piercing through with a tight, narrow beam that has a very small radius, but it goes a long distance. Wide beam, big, can see a lot of things, doesn't pierce very far. Narrow beam pierces far like a lightsaber. It's good to have one of each, and generally a wide beam, especially if you're going to be taking photos, and have that affixed to your camera is generally what I do. And by the way, I'm an advocate for always taking a torch with you, even for daytime dives for communication purposes and the cases when visibility is low or you're going into a small tunnel. and it's just dark. Having a torch with you can really help on any day dive, especially for getting someone's attention afar. And while we're talking about lights, one thing I want to stress a little bit more is wildlife doesn't have eyelids underwater. And so you're shining, especially in narrow beam, it's gonna permanently blind some fish. So treat the thing like a literal lightsaber and try not to slice any fish in half. If you do happen to have your light on a fish, move it away as quickly as possible, because the longer you have it there, the more it's gonna burn its eyes. The wide beam is much easier on the fish, but I do recommend keeping it on lower setting to be mindful. If the fish are swimming away from you, it's likely your light is too bright. Once you start your dive, there are a few things you have to consider in addition to what you do on a day dive. For one, you should always enter the water with your torch turned on. The last thing you want to do is need to try and fiddle around or try and find how to turn on your torch when something's gone wrong other than your dive. Having it turned on is also easy for other divers in the water and also the boat to locate you in the water. If you have a boat driver that you want to signal to say you are okay, you'll do this a little bit differently than the daytime by shining your torch at your hand like this. Same kind of motion above your head, except for your torch shining your light at your hand. This helps you start off on the right foot by making sure everyone can see you. And that's just signaling you're ready to go. If you want to signal to other divers that you're ready to dive, shine your light like this to indicate I'm ready to go down. During the dive, staying close to your group is crucial. Getting separated is a lot easier and riskier in the dark, and finding each other can be a real challenge. Stick together and take advantage of the fact that everyone's torches make it easier to spot one another at a distance. Identifying each other might prove to be a bit more challenging. In most cases, as a team, you won't need to identify specific divers, but if there are other groups of divers in the water, and if you're like me diving with your wife or a good friend, sometimes we use a water-activated blinker on the tank that might have a different special color and allows us to identify, oh, immediately in the distance, that's my wife. Because otherwise, other divers are gonna kind of just be blobs, shadowy figures with light torches. You'll see their light, you just won't know who it is. And of course, this makes it much easier to see who it is, where they are in a pinch in a cluster of divers. Another thing you'll notice is that reading your dive computer or air gauge at night takes a little extra effort due to the lack of light. But don't stress, just shine your torch directly on it for a moment. Backing of the light will absorb the light and stay lit for a period of time, so you can see clearly all the numbers without having to fumble around. It just will naturally light up the backlight. Of course, there's some watches or dive computers have backlights. If you have a really beautiful like LCD like screen, you don't even have to worry about it. But for those who don't, especially for your air gauge, that's what you're gonna do. Shine your light on it and then look at it afterwards. Of course, communicating underwater also gets a little trickier at night, since one hand will always be holding your torch and two-handed signals are pretty much off the table. And even trying and signal with two hands could potentially blind other people around you. So of course, the way around that is to learn one-handed signals and use your torch to light your hand while doing the signals. And you don't need to know all the one-handed signals. It's important to know how to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I'm not okay, or something's wrong. And also, you can use your torch instead of hand signs for simple communication. For example, to signal okay, you point your torch at the ground and make a circle. That means okay. To show there's a problem, move your torch side to side quickly, or any rapid movement, there's a problem. To direct attention at someone, especially with a narrow beam, point your light over there and slowly move it side to side. To get someone's attention, especially if they're looking away from you, move your light side to side toward them their hands or their face, but be ready to shine away once they start looking. You don't want to blind them. Another small tip with light and your environment is if you find some plankton and some very small little fish are attracted to your light and remind me of something like a giant swarm of locusts. They're basically attracted to your light. The longer you stay in one spot, the more that will congregate around you and around your light, so much that eventually it could blot out your light and your entire presence. That's how bad it can be sometimes. If this is happening to you, it helps to take your hand and cover the light while hovering for a few moments. Of course, no one else is going to be able to see you in this moment, but it's going to basically, all that swarm that's around you is going to be attracted to someone else's light, and they're going to go elsewhere, and then you can undo your light and they'll basically slowly come back to you. But you'll have a few moments without the swarm. And that's a good opportunity to take that photo you might have been trying to get. It's kind of a cool experience to be swarmed by thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of little fish or plankton, but it can quickly get annoying on a longer dive. I also wanted to mention for completeness that there's a cool advanced version of night diving that I haven't tried yet, but I've heard about it, using special UV lights and special mask lenses that can help reveal glowing coral and marine life that emits different light that you normally can't see with your eyes. It's definitely on my bucket list, and let me know in the comments below if you've tried it and what you thought. So we've gone over the basics to prepare you for night dives, but the experience of night dives will still feel disorienting at first. That's normal, and your body will feel sensory deprivation for a little while. Navigating underwater at night is a whole different game. Disorientation can set in quickly, and that's why you should do night dives in locations with little to no current and something ideally, very ideally, that you've dove before, so you already know the terrain and the layout. This allows you, even if disoriented, to still be able to start seeing and understanding the landmarks around you and get back on track if you do become disoriented. I'd also highly recommend choosing dive sites with very little to no boat traffic, as they will have a very hard time seeing you at nighttime. In such situations, I would also bring a compass to help mitigate some of the potential risk of getting lost. The compass can always be your guiding beacon in the direction you want to go. Before your dive, take a heading on your planned route and set your compass lubber line markers accordingly. If you're unsure what I'm talking about, no fear. I do have a video coming out that will go over how to use a compass more thoroughly than I'm doing in this video. So if you're looking forward to that, make sure you subscribe. Of course, visibility. It's dark out. You're gonna have low visibility, but then there is also visibility in the water. If you do have good visibility, you can spot features like unique rock formations, coral heads that you recognize from diving during the day. These can all be your fixed landmarks and help position you as you move around through the dive site. You want to have at least 3 landmarks in mind to be able to triangulate yourself in the location of the dive site. By regularly checking your compass against these landmarks, you can quickly detect if you're drifting off course. If you notice an unexpected shift and there's a little bit of current picking up, trust your compass. Head to your predetermined exit point, even if it feels counterintuitive. When starting to surface, you can start shining your light up. This is very visible to boats above, especially at a distance if you have a narrow beam. You can start ascending, looking what's above you, and make sure you do your safety stop, of course, or any other stops you would have needed to normally do. And it's worth noting, DSMBs provide limited usefulness for night dives, but most of them will have reflectors on it. So if you do need to deploy it, make sure to shine your light up at it to illuminate those reflectors. And it's worth noting that some divers, when they're ascending to the surface after their safety stop, like to ascend and circle their light pointing up to make it a little bit more visible. Remember, night diving emergencies can escalate rapidly. The darkness amplifies every challenge, from equipment failures to marine life encounters. But with the right preparation, you can turn a potential catastrophe into a controlled situation. Just as much as day dives, you need to be prepared and ready for issues popping up during a night dive as well. The good news is that the basic procedures don't change that much. You're just adding the challenge of limited visibility, relying on what your dive torch can illuminate. That's why it's so important to practice and prepare for the unexpected situations until your responses become second nature, and even under pressure. If you get separated from your group, which can happen a lot easier at night, follow the standard diver separation protocol. Stay where you are. Rotate your light in a 360 degree like a beacon and try and look for other people. If you have something you can tack, look up, look around for bubbles. If you're not finding others, you can find some piece of metal like a clip, or you can tap your dive torch to your tank and make a loud noise. This is going to be heard from quite some distance, probably disturb other divers and other marine life. But if it's a true emergency, it's better you're heard. Give it a little bit of time. Continue to search around you and look for others, look for their torches, look for bubbles for up to a minute. Keep trying to reestablish contact over that minute, and if you can't reunite after a minute or so, abort the dive. Make sure to complete your safety stop while continuing to search for lights or bubbles as you ascend. It might be also a good idea, of course situational, to deploy your DSMB immediately. If others are already at the surface, they'll see your DSMB and wait for you. If you can't find your team underwater, look for them. Just make sure as you're ascending that you point your dive torch at your DSMB and illuminate it. Once you're at the surface, you can use your voice, you can use your light, or anything else like a signal whistle to get the attention from others from quite some distance away. A narrow beam torch can pierce a very long distance and is probably your best bet. I truly believe that night diving is an incredible experience. It offers a chance to witness underwater magic while sharpening your skills and building confidence in more challenging conditions, preparing you for environments that do have low visibility. Like sometimes day dives may not have great visibility, but you'll be well prepared. It's a fantastic stepping stone toward tech diving and opens the door to growth and unique adventures. If this has you excited about night diving, I've got a perfect follow-up for you. Click on this video to finesse your buoyancy control, because let's be honest, we can all use a little improvement there. And until next time.